Now, I'm happy to say a very fine singer has joined us as well in the studio. Frances Black, good morning.
Good morning,
How are you
Tom?
today?
How are you?
You Are Not Alone is a book of inspirational personal accounts and letters, both by those in recovery from addiction and loved ones impacted by it. That's been published in aid of the Rise Foundation Family Support Charity. And the talk about it is its editor, singer and addiction therapist. There's a fair bit going on with you, Frances, since the last time I saw you.
I don't have time to bless myself at the moment, Tom.
Yeah, that's a journey, isn't it, from where you were? I mean, when I,
Absolutely,
used to see you singing back, you were your Frances Black singer. End off.
Amazing things have happened in the last 10 years, I suppose. Really, there's been a huge change, a huge shift in my life. But
And it came about from addiction, was it?
Yeah, from my own. I suppose it came about from my own being in addiction and then my own recovery from addiction.
Yeah.
And I suppose I'm intrigued with the disease of addiction, and I'm very. It's like as if all of a sudden I woke up, and I looked around and I thought, my God, in Ireland, when you don't drink, you're kind of the odd one out. And I kind of, when you go away to other countries, it's not like that. You're part of, do you know what I mean? You're part of the community. And it's not that I feel out of anything, but I suppose I just noticed that, Ireland. So, and I looked around and I just thought, God, there's something seriously going on here in Ireland. And I think maybe I could be the one that, maybe could talk about it.
Was your addiction very bad? Were you?
Not really. I never really hit, kind of the final stages of addiction. I kind of stopped it, I suppose, mid-track. Do you know what I mean? I didn't like the feeling of powerlessness that it had over me. I didn't like the feeling, and there's no doubt about it. I mean, I had a problem with, but I just didn't like the feeling it had over me. It was kind of controlling me as opposed to me, just getting on with my life. I didn't like the lack of motivation that I had and all of that. Now, I didn't think of that at the time. But I just knew there was something wrong. I knew there was something wrong with me. I didn't know what it was. And I started on a journey to look to see what was wrong with me. And it turned out that my main problem was that I was dependent on alcohol.
And did you find that there was a bit of an eye-opener for you, not just in terms of your own addiction, but all the pain that addiction causes around other people?
I think alcohol, I don't know if people realise that alcohol is a depressant. So even though it might give you that, for me it would have given me, I'm not talking now as a therapist, I'm only talking about from my own personal story here, where it would have given me the injection of confidence and great form and all of that. But a couple of days later, I would be, lacking in motivation, not wanting to do anything, tired, lethargic, feeling low, just feeling very down, Now, maybe it impacted me more than other people, I don't know. But I think that's quite general, really, because no matter what way you look at it, alcohol is a depressant, So I suppose for me, I didn't like that, and now that I'm in recovery and life is lovely, I love life and I enjoy the moments and I love this weather and the trees and all that. It's like, I feel people miss out on all of that, you know what I mean? Or just living a nice life,
So how did you come, though, from recovery to the Rise Foundation? It's really immersing yourself in the world.
Absolutely. Well, I was intrigued by, as I say, the impact that addiction has on Ireland in general. So I decided, I started to think about it, wanted to do something, went back to college, which was the biggest, hardest thing I've ever done in my life, going back to college, because I left school when I was 15, but went back to college and then was very lucky to get a place in the Rutland to train in the Rutland Treatment Centre.
Oh, wow.
And I was training there, and then they kept me on as a therapist, just as a locum therapist there, and I learned so much working in the Rutland. But I think it was there that I first met the families, and I saw the heartache, and it just triggered something in me. I love working with those who are in recovery from addiction, and because they're gorgeous, like myself, they're just like myself, but they're lovely, but there was something in the families that I connected with. So I decided that I would do something. And I decided to set up the Rise Foundation specifically for families. I believe that if we can kind of educate, starting with the family, get into the home and then move out into the community and then move into the schools, and that we can really educate people. It's a long journey, and I know it's going to be a long journey, but I love the work. I absolutely love it, and it's very, very rewarding. And
did it surprise you to see, how much damage one addict can kind of cause around them?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's amazing because even, you know, I suppose from my own point of view, I wouldn't have thought that there was, you don't think when you're in it that you're impacting anybody else, you know. And when the awareness, when you start to become aware that you might be impacting somebody else, that's when the shift for me happened, you know. And yes, it's just for every one person that's in addiction, and this is the statistics, there's 4 to 6 people devastated. Now, I personally think that's much, much more, because you'll have close family members, you'll have the mum and the dad, or you'll have the wife and the children, or the husband and the children, you'll have the brothers and sisters. It's just, from one person being in addiction, the ripple effect is devastating. You'll have friends just devastated by it, trying to help. What can we do? What are we meant to be doing? What are the right things we should be doing? People don't know what to do.
No,
in a way, we're kind of an island of enablers. You know, we think we're helping by, you know, making excuses and, you know, clocking in.
Isn't that a very hard thing? Because you may need to talk to somebody, you know, whose son or daughter has an addiction problem, and you may need to say to them that the help they're giving their son or daughter is just enabling them.
Absolutely, and that's what's the hardest thing, particularly for parents.
Yeah.
You know, parents might think that by, you know, providing all the luxuries of life, which is, you know, the home and giving them the money and making sure that they have their dinner every day and making sure that they're at home, you know, that's the right thing. But in actual fact, and this might sound really harsh, but it's actually feeding the addiction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's actually helping them stay in the addiction. And it's very hard and that's where we come in and try and support the families. When they have to not do that, they're left with a big void. You know,
they might get a phone call in the middle of the night from a son or daughter who could be broken hearted and saying, "Look, Mom, Dad, I just need this." Yeah. And to be able to say, "Look, I'm sorry, I'm not going to." That's a hard.
It's
hard
really, really hard to do. And you know, we would never, in fairness, we would never ask our families to do things that they're not able to do.
Yeah.
It's only what's manageable. For example, you might have a mother, and we'd say to them, "Maybe just don't do their washing this week."
Yeah.
And would that be manageable for you? And that would be managed. She'd say, "I'll try," you know, and her compulsion would be to mind and take care, obviously, as you would any, you know, but if you can just get them to manage to not do the washing, and that's the first step for them. So it's not like you say, "Oh, listen, you have to put them out and you have to do this. It's not like that at all. It's just what's manageable. What's the smallest little thing you can do this week to set a little boundary that you can live with, that's not going to be absolutely devastating for you.
Putting them in touch with other people as well, to realise that they're not alone. That's hugely important too, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and that's where, even in the groups, they really connect, you know, and there's other organisations who do it out there as well. I know the Family Support Network are fantastic. And, you know, and once you get into that group and you see, well, we're not on our own, you know, and they come to the Rise Foundation and they see other mummies and daddies and other wives and husbands and brothers and sisters, you know, that and the heartache is all the same. It might be different stories, it might be different addictions, it might be from marijuana to, you know, mostly alcohol. In fact, alcohol is probably the biggest one. But alcohol, marijuana, some food, you know, families might have a young girl who's either overeating or undereating or bulimic, or, you know, and the heartache all around that. It's all the same feelings, but just different stories.
I think too, people find is that people in addiction can often have, it's like it follows a predictable path, and I think sometimes when they meet up with other people who can, what stage is your addict at, almost is.
Yeah, and there's different, absolutely, there's early, middle and late.
Yeah.
You know, stages of addiction, and some people might come and their family might be in the early stages and they're just a bit concerned and they're not sure, is there a problem, is there not a problem? And then there'll be other people who will be just at the final ready. The family members can be so stressed that they feel they're going mad. They're going absolutely crazy. They don't know what's going on. Some people say, "I feel like I could go into PATS for a month." Do you know what I mean? Because I just feel I need to get a break from this. I need a rest, you know. And in a way, that's why we run residentials as well. We try and run residentials and take the family member out of the environment, give them that week of just getting minded and cared for and looked after, and nice food and therapy and all of that, and it's lovely for them. But then they have to go back into it. Then that's the hard bit. They have to go back into the. Now they do have a few more tools to deal with it all, but it's still very difficult.
It's care and support. That's all you can do. But
and listening, hearing people.
Yeah. But I know. I had a friend who had a very severe addiction, and I heard stories around the time, and it was horrific. And you get the sense sometimes that, you know, if you lost a son or daughter to an accident, you know, at least it's over and it's fine.
Yeah.
But this can be. It's like they're holding the threat of their death.
Absolutely. It's like you're watching your child, or it's watching your loved one go down the road of death, really. Because addiction wants you dead. Yeah. It doesn't matter at what level you are at. At the end of the day, the disease of addiction wants you to die. But the one great thing about addiction, and this is the funny thing, it's not like cancer. It's not like one of the other illnesses. You can get recovery from it, you know, and you can choose to step into recovery. Now, that's not easy. I'm not saying that's easy. Yeah. I know it's very difficult, but you have a choice, and you can make that decision. That's it. I am going to get help. Now, I really believe that you cannot do it on your own. Personally, I really believe that this is only my own personal feeling, that it's very, very difficult to step into recovery by yourself. You need guides. You need to be guided. You need to be shown the path. You need to be directed, and whether that's through AA or a treatment centre or wherever that might be, but you really need that support. I've no doubt about it.
Very hard.
But the thing is, Tom, it's the same for the family member. Yeah. They need their guides too. They need their supports, and they need to be shown the path as well.
So what's the Rise Foundation going to do? You're talking about a centre on Rathlin Island, is it?
Yeah, well, as I said to you earlier, we run our residentials, but it's very costly at the moment to run a residential. Yeah. We've tried to secure funding, but it's getting more difficult. We need to build our own centre, and we have already been offered a lease from Irish Lights. It took me 2 years to convince them to give us this lease, but they're going to give us a lease, but we need 1.5 million to do it up. And, you know, now I personally feel that if the government really, you know, could put their thinking caps on and helped us get this money together, or provided this money together, it would save them millions. Because at the end of the day, Tom, 55% of people who present themselves to A&E at the weekend are alcohol or drug related, and they could, even by probably a couple of weekends, they'd probably have their money back, you know. By looking at preventative methods, and we're looking at a preventative centre where we can look at bringing, you know, community groups up, as well as bringing our families, bringing community groups up, bringing human resource people up, employ, you know, teachers, doctors. I'd love to get some of the doctors up there, you know, to just talk to them about how they feel, you know, because they're the first call of intervention. They could change somebody's life by knowing what to do, and I know some of them do, but some of them don't. Right. Do you know what I mean? So it's just to kind of get that education out there and look at
the Rathlin Island Centre is going to be for both addicts and the family.
No, not for addiction at all. Not for those in addiction at all. Only for family members, but also an education centre to educate people about addiction. So that would be weekend workshops.
It's gone off the agenda a little bit at the moment with the economy.
I know,
People act like the economy is the only issue we have, but it's still raging, isn't it?
It's getting worse, really? Tom. And the scary bit is I feel we're losing our young people. You know, our young people are just... It's scary, you know, and for parents out there, I would be concerned. Do you know, I mean, I heard some kids talking about drinking to the black. We're going out drinking to the black, and if you look at their drinking patterns, it's not the norm. You know, they'll drink their bottle of vodka before they're nagging a vodka. It's drinking to the blackout.
You're joking.
Yeah. And that's what they do. They don't go out and have one or two drinks, which I think would be wonderful. You know, if you could go out and have one or two drinks and be social and, you know, and then come home, you know. But it's not like that anymore, really. It's gone out drinking, binge drinking, and it's really, really scary. And we need to educate both the parents and the children and, you know, employers. You know, in the workplace it's happening, and, you know, it's everybody needs to be educated about it. So
good.
we're hoping to do that.
So the book has loads of tales from families.
The book is great. It's number 3 actually this week.
Wonderful.
I know, I'm delighted.
Great.
We heard that yesterday. We're absolutely over the moon. It's number 3 in the bestsellers list.
Brilliant.
So the book is wonderful. It's called You Are Not Alone. It's personal stories of those who've been impacted by addiction, whether it's the individual, but it's mostly family members, and them talking about how they stepped into their recovery. But we've wonderful people, like, you know, people writing stories for us, like Ben Dunn and Mary Coughlin, Jimmy McCarthy and Paul McGrath, Oisin McConville, and Rachel Keogh as well, who's a woman who's spoken very openly about her own heroin addiction. But I really, to be honest with you, Tom, as much as those stories are fantastic, it's the families are just amazing. They've written anonymously, and they donated their hearts and souls to this book, and it was just very moving, but also hopeful and inspirational.
The hope and inspiration is huge, but I think also just for people to know what could be down the road and where they may need to get help, because you know, we talk about parenting a lot on the show, and to think that, you know, you're beautiful, that the child that you love could fall victim to something like this. It's frightening.
It really is heartbreaking, and it's really, I would really encourage people to educate themselves and watch out for the signs. But educate. You can't get enough.
Frances, thanks very much for that. You Are Not Alone in bookshops now. Lovely talking to you.
Thanks very much, Tom.